Hi there, welcome back to Avery Gardens. Now you might remember these apple trees from a video we did earlier on in the year for pruning with the apple trees in the winter. But now we're going to show you the summer version of that video. So as you can see, these are the trees that were pruned quite substantially back in December, January time. And they've put on a lot of vigorous growth. This is what happens when you prune in the winter. If you prune a dormant tree, it will stimulate a lot of regrowth for the following season. So this is the result. You can see it's a very densely packed tree full of this lovely new healthy growth. Now we want to prune this because if we leave it, the tree will get very leggy and unproductive, and it will be more prone to disease as there's not enough light and air getting into the tree, and the apples that do form, they will be very much weaker than they would be otherwise, because there's not enough, as I said, not enough light, not enough air, not enough space. So we want to thin these new shoots out. The principle of summer pruning, as I've said, aside from the benefit for the fruit, is also it just reduces the amount of growth that you'll get in the subsequent years for the tree, and it will just encourage the fruiting spurs to form for next year. So we want to be selective about the branches that we prune, and we want to be selective about how much we prune off each branch. So for a quick starter guide, we can see this little area here. There are actually some apples in the tree. I don't know if you can see them, but you can see just how smothered they are. All this growth is absolutely constricting these apples, and so we want to thin these out. The main principle is to get these branches down to about, I like to think, about 4 or 5 inches from the main branch of the tree. So get a stem, follow it down, and just clip it back to that area close to the tree. And what it will do, it will just allow more light, more air, and immediately open up this area of the tree. So you can see immediately these apples are now visual, they're now open, and so these are going to ripen much better now and become more flavoursome, bigger apples. If you come across smaller branches, such as this one, I don't know if you can see it, but it's got a wispy, thin, weak bit of growth, just remove it completely, back to the tree, because that's not going to produce any fruiting spurs lower down. Whereas these bigger, more girthy branches, these are more likely to produce productive spurs for next year. So if you do come across, you know, an area of the tree which is full of branches, try and reduce the thinner, smaller ones, because you'd rather have quality over quantity in terms of branches. So this tree here will really benefit from this. Again, some nice bits of growth there, and you can see what I've done. These apples now, you can even remove some of the leaves around the apples, just so they're open, just so they've got air, they've got light, and they've got room to grow and swell. There is a separate video that I'm going to do which will show you how to thin out apples, because once you've pruned the tree, you will get a lot more access to the tree, and so you'll start seeing apples which will need some attention. That thinning out video will be kind of parallel to this one, and I'll just talk you through the basic principles of when you have groups of apples that form, you just want to thin some of them out, just so that the apples that remain can ripen, grow and swell into nice, productive, healthy apples. Because what we don't want is a really crammed, full tree of apples that will just form really small, tasteless apples. You want quality, not quantity. But that will be in another video. For now, I'm just going to carry on pruning this apple, really to maximise its productivity, and this will stop the tree from throwing up loads of new water shoots. You can see at the top how dense it is. If we can find a good pruning routine, it will just reduce the need to go really hard on the tree like we did in the winter. That's a tree that was not pruned properly for a few years, and so if we can start this process now, in the winter, the pruning becomes significantly less and less dramatic for the tree, and it will now form a nice productive routine. Apple trees like these ones, these are like heritage varieties, they're quite old apples. They tend to crop biennially, so you'll get a really good heavy crop one year, and the subsequent year you normally get a much smaller crop. Completely normal. That's just the tree rejuvenating, recharging, and so don't panic if your apple tree is less productive one year to the next. That's just a natural cycle of the tree. So as I said, if you've got a nice mature, even a new apple tree, it's a really good idea to get into the pattern of pruning them now, just so you can maximize the lifespan of the tree and you get a really good healthy crop of apples.